Hey guys, and welcome back to the NPA for this week, week number 3, game of the week. It is between the Golden State Gogoats, MissSnowBunny 1-1, taking on Baby Powdahh and AV Dunsparcelona, who are 0-2. Both teams are pretty good in terms of variance. You can see that Baby Powdahh at the top has Mew, Roserade, Kyurem Black, Mega Altaria, Bronzong, and Greninja, while MissSnowBunny has Crustle, Klinklang, Zapdos, Mega Slowbro, Cloyster, and Snorlax. So the first thing that stands out here is that MissSnowBunny has 3 Pokemon that really like to set up, being the Crustle, the Klinklang, and the Cloyster. On the other side, the Altaria is usually the Pokemon that likes to set up, maybe get a Dragon Dance off or something like that, but there are wall breakers throughout, so the Slowbro could be a bit of an issue for MissSnowBunny in terms of defenses, because obviously Kyurem Black can just annihilate things with its Bolt Strike and doing all that jazz. So we're going to jump right into it, and the lead matchup is going to definitely be an interesting one, because it'll kind of dictate the pace of the battle. If you want to lead with a sweeper to start things off, then you're going to have to play on the defensive, and that's exactly what Jen or MissSnowBunny does. So it's going to be Crustle and Greninja to start things off. So the Greninja immediately first turn goes for the Scald, and it is a Torrent Greninja. It knocks down the Crustle to its Sturdy, and it does not get the burn. The Crustle Shell Smashes here, and that's actually a very interesting play right off the gate, because Crustle's a Pokemon that generally doesn't have a ton of speed, but with that +2 really could become a threat, and it does, as it gets an X-Scissor off against Greninja, and it takes it out in one hit. So Crustle does end up outspeeding Greninja after the Shell Smash, which is definitely not something easy to do. Greninja is a very fast Pokemon, so you have to assume that the Crustle has a pretty hefty amount of speed investment to be able to do that. But the X-Scissor, which is Stab, takes it out in one hit, and that's a really good start for Jen, taking out a massive threat in Greninja. So in comes the Altaria, and the Altaria is going to Mega Evolve, get all that puffiness on it. It's now a Dragon and Fairy type. And Crustle's going to go for the Poison Jab. +2 Poison Jab, catches off guard Baby Powdahh, and goes for the return and takes out the Crustle. But that Altaria is down to basically maybe 3 HP. So in comes Cloyster to try to finish things off. But obviously Baby Powdah's not going to give up his Mega Evolution just yet. So in comes the Bronzong, and it's going to absorb this Ice Shard quite easily. So now it's in a bit of an odd position, because Cloyster is a very defensive Pokemon. Its special defense is terrible. And one of the things that Bronzong has is, of course, its Steel typing, which does a lot of damage to Ice types. So what's going to happen here is that Jen is going to switch out the Cloyster after we find out that the Bronzong has leftovers. It does not bring it back up to full, but the Cloyster is going to switch out, and Jen is going to go into a Zapdos. So if you remember looking at the beginning of the game, nothing really can resist Zapdos' Thunderbolt. I guess you could say that probably the best Pokemon to deal with it would be Roserade, but the Bronzong should be one of those Pokemon that can deal with it, just because, you know, it's a pretty bulky mon. But Zapdos comes in, and it's a Life Orb Thunderbolt, and Zapdos does well over half. That does about 70% to the Bronzong. Bronzong's going to go for a Toxic, just trying to whittle down the Zapdos, which is obviously a huge threat to Baby Powdah's team. Obviously, there's not much that he can do in this point, because it seems like anything that switches in is going to take a massive amount of damage from this Zapdos. No ground types, so there's no actual immunities to it. But in comes the Mew to take on the Zapdos, and Zapdos goes for another Thunderbolt. Why not? Gets the stab, and it does well over half as well. This time it did about 60%, and after Leftovers recovery, Mew is in a very bad situation. So Mew actually can go down. It was a really good play by Jen to just keep going for the Thunderbolt, but the Mew's going to outspeed the Zapdos, and the Zapdos is going to get knocked down to 1 HP. That's a really lucky break there, because obviously the Zapdos is not going to live through Life Orb Recoil. But you take out Mew, which, anytime you have a Mew which can learn pretty much any move in the game, it's a threat. So Zapdos goes down, but you can pretty much tell that even though it is 4v4 at this point, that it seems like Jen has at least a clear advantage in terms of the matchups that she's working with. So back comes in Bronzong, which is at very low health, and in comes the Cloyster. So the Cloyster is going to go for a Shell Smash, and you can tell immediately that this is a Pokemon that wants to start setting up and start sweeping. And Jen gets not greedy per se, but she does go with a second Shell Smash following the Bronzong going for a Stealth Rock. Because this Cloyster is Focus Sashed, it really doesn't matter if you get another one of these Shell Smashes up. You'll get up to +4 speed, +4 attack, +4 special attack. And Bronzong here is going to go for pretty much any attack will knock this thing down to its sash at this point, you know, being so far removed from its defenses. So out comes a Flash Cannon from the Bronzong, takes Cloyster down to 1, and the Cloyster holds on with its Focus Sash, and now here comes the interesting part. So Bronzong is approaching half health. It's about 45%. And Cloyster's going to go for the Stab Icicle Spear. So obviously Bronzong resists it, but, well, and technically it doesn't resist it, but it is neutral, and with the crit on the third hit, it is a skill link, so that would have probably done, if it did about 40%, 45% for 3 hits, plus that critical hit, you might have been able to take out the Bronzong from around 80% depending. So that's still a lot of damage to get done. In comes the Kyurem Black, which will not be able to outspeed the Cloyster, obviously, and does not have priority. And that shiny green and whatever. Kyurem Black can outspeed, but it can get lucky as it does avoid the Rock Blast. Now, I think that's a pretty big misplay on Jen's part, because while Rock Blast is definitely a useful tool, being that it's a Dragon Ice-type Pokemon, it would be neutral stab damage from a 100 accuracy Icicle Spear at +4. Kyurem's not the bulkiest Pokemon in the world. I think Cloyster probably could have taken out with the Icicle Spear and definitely taken this battle down. But that lucky break for Baby Powdahh, that's an easy KO onto the Cloyster, and a second sweeper is now gone. So in comes Slowbro to deal with Kyurem. That's an interesting play because obviously Kyurem likes to carry electric-type attacks, but instead of staying in and trying to confront the Slowbro, Baby Powdahh is going to switch out into the Altaria, maybe to sack it off. Doesn't want to risk something happening that he can't predict. So Slowbro is going to Mega Evolve, which is clearly you have to Mega Evolve the first turn it's out, and it goes for the Psychic. So just a simple Psychic play that takes out the Altaria, and now you can see that it's pretty much, at this point, what is it, 4v2? As Roserade comes in to take on the Slowbro, and instead of going for a switch out, the Slowbro is going to stay in and take a massive Leaf Storm. The Roserade is going to take it out, and that pretty much means that Jen gets a free switch into anything, and she goes into the Klinklang, which clearly is a very good Pokemon to have late game. It's not a very good Pokemon in general, but with its steel typing, it can do great damage to Kyurem because of its ice. So instead of just staying in and going for a normal attack, Jen goes for the Shift Gear. Shift Gear, +2 speed, +1 attack, and move exclusive to Klinklang. It gets the boost, and now, with that boost, now clearly outspeeding, goes for the Gear Grind. Gear Grind is an 85 accuracy move, which is a little bit risky, but it does 2 hits worth of damage, and it's equal damage, unlike something like Parental Bond. So the Gear Grind comes out. That's going to do well over half on the first hit. The second hit will take out the Kyurem Black, and that means that's going to be Klinklang versus, well, the only Pokemon left being the Roserade. So Klinklang is there. One more Pokemon in the back for Jen, but I don't think it's much of an issue at this point, as Klinklang's going to go for the Gear Grind here. As you can see, it does just about half health to the Roserade, and the second hit, crit did not matter, will take it out. And that is your battle. So Jen defeats Baby Powdahh in a pretty good battle. You know, it was a little bit of luck going against her, but all in all, she had some good setup Pokemon, and Baby Powdahh didn't have a great way to deal with them. Didn't have priority for a lot of his Pokemon, and really was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place for a lot of this battle. But I think he put up a pretty good fight in the end. He could not get rid of the Klinklang, and I think there was one more Pokemon in the back that was at pretty much close to full health. So, you know, it was a good battle. I think it's the game of the week. There weren't a ton of great competitive battles this week, but I thought this one definitely showcased some ups and downs, some back and forth, some good setups, and some good overall plays by both sides, I think they did a pretty good job. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This was Game of the Week for week number 3 of the NPA Season 2. I hope you guys enjoyed. I am Swami Studios, and I'll be talking to you guys later. Peace.